You're listening to the Peasinner Network. For more great podcasts, go to peasinner.com.au.
One mistake now could ruin everything.
I know that, Doctor. And it could happen so easily.
What do you mean?
The universe is hanging on a thread. A single recursive pulse down that cable and the CVE would close forever. Even a humble assistant could do it.
You're mad.
People of the universe, please attend carefully. The message which follows is of vital importance to you all. We present to you a case study of one of the most dangerous minds in the universe. A history of the lives and times of the renegade Time Lord known as the Master.
The Master.
Call me Master.
The choice is simple. Join us and continue listening, or face total annihilation.
Listen.
They are the Master, and you will obey them.
You will obey me.
Please attend carefully. Hello and welcome to Please Attend Carefully, the Doctor Who podcast about the most magisterial of malefactors. I'm Ciarán Moffatt.
And I'm Amber Patrick.
And each week we bring you a chapter from the lives and times of the renegade Time Lord known universally as the Master. We're here because we think that the Doctor has had too much of the spotlight.
Yes, it's time for the Master to take centre stage where he belongs and give the credit he's due.
Yes, the credit he so dearly deserves. There's a lot of Doctor Who podcasts out there, and a lot of them look at different stories and do reviews and things like that. We're not going to do that. I mean, we might do some, just accidentally in the course of what we're doing. But we want to talk about the Master and look at all of the stories involving them, and there are many of them.
And all of the actors behind the Master and what they bring to each role and why they were chosen or what nuances they bring that the others didn't, and how their characters and performances progress throughout the years.
Yeah, exactly, because we talk about the Doctor a lot, and that how each actor is built on the Doctor before them, and everyone loves talking about William Hartnell starting it all, and how Patrick Troughton made it fun, and then John Pertwee made it an action role, whereas the Master, who has been in it less time, it is the 50-something anniversary of the Master, I think, because the 50th was Big Finish celebrated with Masterful. Which was amazing. I loved it. It was so wonderfully bleak. We're not talking about that one today. We will get there. We will get there. So to start us off, and we're unraveling what this show is at the same time as unraveling who the Master is. The first series of this show, each episode will focus on a different Master and how it is they're different, and how that sentence started well but ended really badly.
Much like the Master's plans. I mean, every episode we talk about is going to be what we consider to be a highlight of that particular Master's arc.
Yep.
Perhaps. It could be their first introduction, or it could be the end of their regeneration, or it's just where they're really on show, really giving it their all as the Master in that particular series.
Yeah. And I think the thing about this show is, if you ask someone what Doctor Who is, they'll be able to say, look, it's a show about someone who travels through time, and they've got a time machine that's shaped like a police box from the 1950s, and there's Daleks and things like that. It's very easy to sort of pin down what Doctor Who is and who the Doctor is, even though there's a lot of mercurial mystery there. If you ask someone who the Master is, it's kind of a lot harder because there's a lot more vague.
Yes, people will often jump straight into he's the Moriarty to Holmes. But I think it's a bit more nuanced than that.
It may have started like that, just like Doctor Who may have started as like a kids show about an old grandfather who takes people through time. It has evolved, and the Master has definitely kept up with that.
Yes, definitely.
You will obey me and no one else. Do you understand?
I shall obey.
Just a little bit of context for us. So we're both in our 30s. So I think we're sort of straddling the end of classic Who and then the reintroduction of new Who.
Well,
both of us. I mean, I know that both of us grew up with families with parents who were Who fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you know, so the exposure to the franchise has been since the start of our lives, essentially.
I feel like a bit of an old man when it comes to Doctor Who. Like I feel weird when people talk about Whovians because I'm just like, we didn't have a word for that because
then,
we hadn't collectivized yet.
Yeah, it was just if you caught reruns on the ABC or your parent had a VHS copy of it or something.
If you were like my dad, who I think it's safe now, no one's going to come after him. He was a prolific VHS pirate. He had a membership with every Movie Land, Blockbuster, Video Easy between Gawler and Adelaide. And so it's a weird sense thing for me. I was telling my partner about this the other day. When I was a kid, we used to have videos with the names of Doctor Who stories on them because he taped them onto those videos. And just the weird combinations of stories because they were taped in whatever order we found them. So there's one tape I remember clearly had the Logopolis Sharda Warriors of the Deep, which is a wild grouping.
Yeah. Wow.
Irresistible.
Yeah, my mum was obsessed with Five. Like when I think about Doctor Who, that's who I think about because she was huge into Five, Tegan, Adric, Nyssa. She's still obsessed with them today. I bought her a Peter Davison cardboard cutout for her office and she absolutely loves it. She was going to go as far as to name me Adric if I was born a boy. That's the name she had lined up for that.
That's a lot to lay on a child.
So yeah, that's the background of where we come from.
You cannot be allowed to alter the course of history, even indirectly.
How do you propose to stop me?
I shall have to give it some thought.
You haven't much time.
And you haven't your compressor.
I still have my wits.
So do I.
My first question is, when do you first remember seeing the Master and what's the impression you sort of had of the character? Like, you know, do you have that moment where you think this is where it started?
Yep. And you know what? I'm going back to that video. It's Logopolis.
Okay.
My first memory of the Master is Anthony Ainley playing his little mischievous little, he's basically like Scooby-Doo, like behind the scenes in Logopolis. I know exactly what you're talking about. On his tiptoes, knees up in the air. He's like Despicable Me in that story. It's a wonderful sort of joie de vivre that I really enjoy. But I remember being I would have been less than 5, I reckon. I would have been really, really young. And I'd already been watching Doctor Who. Look, as my dad loves to say, he took me home from the hospital at 2 days old and was bathing me in front of Doctor Who. He brought that up at my wedding.
Fantastic.
So I've been watching Doctor Who since, constantly.
Yep.
But Logopolis is my first solid memory. And I remember making that sort of association as you do as a really young kid. I had Lego and, I'd gotten all the blue blocks out and I'd made Lego TARDIS to go with my little Lego people who was, there was the Doctor, Adric, Tegan, Nyssa, that sort of thing. And then there was a Master. And then I made the Master's TARDIS out of Lego. But in my head, and because I was just a kid and making that sort of association, it was still a police box. But, I suppose the Master's TARDIS was a police box in that story. It was still a police box, but it was made out of black bricks.
Okay.
So it was that sort of, this is the same but evil. It's the opposite way.
Yep.
How succinctly put.
For me, it's actually Eric Roberts in the movie because
I always dress for the occasion.
Yeah, that's where I if I think back, I have such a strong memory of watching the film at home when it would have aired on TV for the first time.
I remember that. I was 6 years old. No one else in the house was interested. My dad was busy, so he couldn't watch it. I taped it. I sat unreasonably close to the television, which, when you're 6 years old, it's like, don't sit so close to the TV. And I'm sitting unreasonably close. And I remember the calmness of sitting there watching it totally wrapped. It got to the end. I hit stop, rewind, play again.
Yeah. So for me, Roberts, which is a wild place, I think, to start with the Master.
I have a lot of good things to say about Eric Roberts.
Yeah, so do I. But I think just like you, Ainley would have been. I just think I was too young to remember, but Ainley would have probably been the first Master I ever saw. I just don't remember exactly.
He was the Master for longer than any other actor.
Yeah, and the Master around the time that reruns would have been airing when we were watching.
Exactly.
We're most likely to be seeing those episodes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the time, I'm trying to no. So, because there are several of the Roger Delgado stories that it hasn't been until recently that they've been able to find them again in color. Mm-hmm. There are quite a lot of them that were in black and white, purely because they were the backup tapes, because the BBC had a policy of burning things.
That's monstrous. Yeah. You do remember who you're talking to.
All right, so another question.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you fell in love with the Master? Was it Ainley Scooby doing behind the,
The Master has always been such a joy to watch. And I mean, as is obvious, like I think one thing we should just sort of take as read at this point is that you and I are both massive Doctor Who fans.
Yes.
It is a huge thing. Like for me, it's the closest thing I get to a religion. Like this is.
Yeah. Like you've got a tattoo sleeve.
I do have a tattoo sleeve of Doctor Who. Yeah, exactly. Ends up with a massive TARDIS on my back. And I love Doctor Who, and the Master is always such a joyous part of it. Like, you know that the thing about Doctor Who is it is a dip-in show. Like, you can dip in anywhere. You don't have to watch things in order. Like, the new Who, sure, they've got, like, story arcs and things, unless, of course, you watch Flux. You can't, like, watch one episode in the middle of Flux and just enjoy it. But it is a dip-in show, and you always find yourself going, it's like the Daleks. It's just like, I'm going to enjoy a Dalek story. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy a Master story. And I think it's because, although there are those great stories that have villains or monsters that are, new and fresh, and they've got really cool new ideas, the thing about someone like the Master is there's character development there that you've got as read, so you can go straight into an amazing story without having to understand who he is or she is. They are. It's very difficult getting pronouns right when you're talking about multiple different incarnations of the same being. They seems best, but it's anyway. But you don't need to worry about the character development. I mean, they put in some character development, but you're not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
You know that, wonderful machinations are going on. I'm not sure when I would say that I fell in love with the character. I think, this is like, I love Master stories. I really do. I think the time when I first really loved it is honestly quite recently. And it's with Big Finish's War Master stories, because they gave they finally showed this is what happens when the Doctor isn't around to help people. The Master indiscriminately kills people.
Yeah. The danger, really.
Yeah, and the huge long, because when you watch Doctor Who, there's an episode, I don't know, take for example, say like The Mind of Evil or The Sea Devils. Something like that, where the Master has been planning this huge long-term plan for months. And then the Doctor comes in right at the moment when it's about to be done.
The payoff,
Right at the payoff, and just shuts the whole thing down.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Doctor does.
Yeah.
Like, the Doctor is a Superman. It's unreal. Like, it's unrealistic. Like, only the Doctor can stop these plans. And so when the Doctor's not there, the Master wins. Like, in Doctor Who, the Master can't win. When the Master has their own show, they can.
And I'm afraid there's no escape for you both, not now.
We shouldn't get too far into him, although I will say my answer for this question is absolutely, it's Yana into Sim. That moment when Utopia builds and you find out who he really is.
The Professor was an invention. So perfect a disguise that I forgot who I am.
I was a teenager at the time, and it's like, oh, here we go. This is now my favorite character ever in Doctor Who.
That is the first time I think the Master really has rage. because the Master, when played by Roger Delgado or Anthony Ainley, I mean, especially Jeffrey Beavers, is always really sort of restrained. But that bit where he opens the watch and restores his self, and he's just like, you never once stopped to ask me about this watch. He's just angry.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess we'll get to it eventually as well, but we're post-Time War, which is a huge change up in the... Things aren't so carefree, and the Master's not just, doing whatever he wants. There's some weight to the universe.
This is the interesting thing about a show like this, is that we kind of have to run on two tracks of in-universe explanations as to why things are happening. But on the other hand, you've got production things. Like Doctor Who, I'm very much of the belief that like Classic Who and New Who, they're all one show. It's all Doctor Who.
Yes.
It's just continuation. They've just slightly changed the format. And that format change, and also the way television has changed, because we want our characters to have a bit more depth and emotion. And
they're not 25 minutes anymore, they're they're a full 50-minute show now, so we've got more time.
I'm the Master. I'm very worried about my future.
Now, if you're listening to this and you don't know what Doctor Who is, I don't know why you're here. That's one. Two, if you like Doctor Who and you want to know more about the Master, if you're one of those people who's only seen New Who, I'm not judging you. I'm not. But
try and sound a bit sincere.
Honestly, it's you're missing out. It's something that Amber has said to me many times, which is it's more of the thing you like.
Yeah.
Why would you not watch more of the thing that you like?
Yeah, I know, but I understand. People do find it hard to go back to the old. Like the pacing of TV is different, the dialogue is different, filming is different. I understand.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so you want to know who the Master is, and we're going to tell you more about the Master than you probably thought there was.
We're gonna try and really give this the time and credit he deserves, and really look into some of the choices that are made, particularly by the specific actors, and how he relates to the Doctor as a character. And this isn't a Doctor podcast, but obviously
you can't talk about one without the other, can you?
Oh no, not at all. And each of them has a different relationship with their corresponding Doctor, and I mean Ainley even more so. He got 4 of them.
Okay, so let's get this. So he played against Tom Baker in Legopolis, and then all of Peter Davison's run. He was in The Matrix in the 6th Doctor's run, and then he was in Survival in the 7th Doctor.
I couldn't do better myself.
Now you know who we are. Now you know what it is we're doing. We will be going through every single story that involves the Master that has been either published or officially sanctioned by the BBC. Not fanfic, guys. Please don't send us your fanfic.
I mean...
Okay, all right. Send us your fanfic. I can't guarantee we'll talk about it. We will read it.
I might read it.
Yeah, you'll probably read it, yeah.
So we're not going to do these sequentially. We're not going to spend the first however many episodes just on Delgado. We're going to start with him, but then we're going to jump towards a new Master, and then we might come back and do another classic one. And then I think we're also going to delve into the extended universe.
Yes. I mean, it's extended universe makes it sound like it's, Legends content and not canon. But so we will definitely not just be looking at TV. We will also be looking at the wonderful Big Finish audio, as well as, some BBC audio stuff.
Absolutely be giving McQueen.
Can't wait to see what you do for an encore.
Yep. he deserves it. I love it. And also we'll be going into the comics, which I will admit I often discount the comics a lot, but in the research for this series, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to read that now.
You get the gist. Maybe not.
So we should say at this point that in this podcast, we have developed certain terminology, some of which you may be familiar with, some of which you may not. We can't just refer to the Masters by the actors that play them, because in some cases, different actors play the same incarnation of the Master.
We're all the Master.
What?
We're all the Master!
While researching this, I found out that no one has really come up with a satisfactory, way of referring to the Masters like across the board.
Yeah, like I know that like Tumblr has some, but not all of them. They always just go by the actor's name. So you do have Crispy to refer to the catch-all,
which I dislike. It is that deserves respect.
So Decayed Master,
yes.
you'd prefer.
So, for example, if we were to talk about Roger Delgado's incarnation, we would call him the Suave Master, is what we've landed on.
I am usually referred to as the Master.
A lot of people call him, or possibly the Enemy Master. And then, of course, there's the Decayed Master, played by Peter Pratt and Jeffrey Beavers.
You look at all those strong, healthy bodies passing by and you think, I want a piece of that.
The Treemass Master, played by Anthony Ainley.
Your arrival here was most timely.
The Bruce Master.
This isn't my body, strictly speaking. I stole it.
I wish there was a better name for that. It just, it sounds a bit, hello, Bruce.
Oh, God. That's just from our Australian perspective.
Yes, exactly. The other ones we may mention are the War Master, which we mentioned earlier.
I may not be able to see you, but I can hear you.
Played by Derek Jacobi, so the incarnation of the Master that was in the Time War. The Saxon Master, played by John Sim.
They're not going to think like me. They're going to become me.
Missy.
Short for mistress. Well, couldn't very well keep calling myself the Master. Now, could I?
And the Spy Master.
Doctor, I did say look for the Spy Master. Or should I say Spy Master.
That's Sacha Dhawan. There are others that may come up. We will be talking not just about the generally accepted masters. We'll also be talking about the contentious masters, whether these people actually are the master or not. The biggest one, of course, being the meddling monk, which we now accept is not the master, but for such a long time, people were like, no, it's got to be an incarnation of the master. But no, Big Finish put that one to rest. But
and the other contentious one?
The other contentious one is the War Chief from the War Games, which we will get into. Some people are insistent that it is. Some people are insistent that it's not. I believe from what I've heard, Big Finish, and I should point out I'm a big Finish fanboy. Yeah. I listen to all the audios. I'm pretty sure it's actually part of their actual official stance that the War Chief is the master.
I see.
That is their official stance on the subject. I would like them...
Is there any proof in the text, though? Back up your sources.
Yeah, back up the sources. We will get into a whole episode on that one.
We'll
basically, it's just you're the one who's going to be reading all the novelizations, so you're the one who's going to find out for sure.
Yeah.
So these are all words we will use to describe the master. But I suppose we should keep sort of dancing around the subject of who is the master.
And it's important not to go insane. No one had better call me insane.
So who is the master? To that end, I thought I'd read some excerpts. The first is from Doctor Who, Monsters and Villains, which is a companion book from series 1 of New Who. Like the Doctor, the Master is a renegade Time Lord. But unlike the Doctor, he is motivated by a lust for power and a love of chaos and destruction. The Doctor and the Master were apparently at school together and used to be friends. Certainly the Time Lords are aware of their former association. The Master is urbane, sophisticated, and charming. His face, especially his eyes, hint at his terrible power. He can hypnotize the weak-minded with a few words and destroy worlds on a whim. For his part, the Doctor pretends to be unimpressed, but his respect for the Master is undeniable.
Just as an aside, I think it's funny that he's suave and sophisticated, and I'm maybe the first one.
Yeah, maybe.
I think the sophistication kind of goes out the window. Don't have to include this. That's what I think. Like, it's
fair.
just.
I mean, that's fair, I guess.
I mean, think about Spy Master and 13 rolling around on the floor together, screaming and pulling at each other's hair. Like, sophistication's long gone.
Again, please don't send us your fanfic.
I'll give out the Tumblr at the end. You can send it there.
It is interesting that sort of thing was written basically with the suave master in mind, with Roger Delgado.
I think that's I think the perspective of him being, suave and sophisticated and all very much comes from Delgado. I feel like Ainley, unfortunately, I think it's just in so many stories that eventually it's like, come on, man, this is just not working anymore. You've tried. It's time to take a new approach. And he becomes almost comical, some of those disguises. And then the new Who masters are just psychopaths.
They very much are. As Missy constantly says, she's bananas.
But did I mention bananas?
So we've got a kind of idea of who the Master is, but for a show that started in 1963, the Master didn't turn up until 1971, season 8, and he got basically the whole. He was the villain for the whole season. Mm-hmm. Like, he was the big bad.
Yeah, and his popularity, according to some of the production journals I've read, his popularity rivaled the Doctor's when he arrived. Delgado suddenly became hugely popular, like fan mail, audience response, everything.
You are under a new thumb now.
And for those of you Tumblrites who are wondering if we're going to address your favourite ships or not, begrudgingly, we will be.
No, begrudgingly over here.
As I said, I'm I'm an old school Doctor Who fan. No canoodling in the TARDIS.
Whereas I am of the opinion that they're husbands. I see that hand on Delgado's waist, John Pertwee, all right?
That jackanapes, all he ever does is cause trouble.
It's funny, really, because if you're new to Doctor Who and you want to know about the Master, if you look at literally anything made after 2008, all it talks about is the sound of drums. Like, I have so many of these things, all these encyclopedias here, and literally the second sentence is, he turned mad when he looked into the untempered schism, which is something we're going to look into.
Yeah. Because obviously you've got 25 years or something of none of that.
I mean, even this one, the Doctor Who Encyclopedia, which is written by Gary Russell. Honestly, if there's anyone out there who knows Doctor Who, it's Gary Russell. And literally the first sentence is, plagued by the never-ending sound of drumming in his head. There is so much more to the Master than what the show gives you at the time.
I have some encyclopedias that are old that I picked up, secondhand. And anything that's just talking about the first 3 Masters, it's all about his powers of hypnotism and he's a master of disguise. Those are the 2 main talking points about him, which I would say are probably 2 points that have dropped off a little. They're still in the new stuff, but they've given way to the drums and stuff now.
Well, the best example of that is World Enough in Time. That included the Master having a disguise. Also a big mainstay when Anthony Ainley was doing it, using an anagram of his name in the credits so that no one would know that he was in that episode. Mark Gatiss did it in Sympathy for the Devil. He was credited as Sam Kisgart, which I love.
I am the Master, and you will obey me.
To get back on track and maybe start wrapping things up, the impossible question: do you have a favourite Master?
Who do I love as the Master? Who's my favorite Master?
It's okay if you can't name one.
I don't. Yeah, look, it is hard. I think there's just something about Derek Jacobi's voice, like listening to that calm, calculated, cold. But at the same time, Geoffrey Beaver's the way that even in audio, Geoffrey Beavers manages to convey being in intense pain at all times while also being calm. I mean, even Eric Roberts, the man who was voted outacted by a CGI snake in the same role, he's come back.
He's so threatening.
He is.
Like, he's legitimate. Like, he scares the other masters, which I think is hard to do.
Yeah. There are so many masters, and there are so... I'm not sure I can pick one. Possibly the War Master. I think Derek Jacobi's performance, and I think like Derek Jacobi clearly loves the role, and he loves the people he's working with, and also those stories are written, partially written, and almost entirely directed by Scott Hancock, who is brilliant. He's a brilliant mind, which is why he's been given the job as script editor for the new series of Doctor Who.
Great.
I know it's
Get
so
some
cool.
of that Big Finish talent onto the screen. For me, it's again the impossible question. I would have said Sim for the longest time. Like, that's who I would have picked. But since these War Master audios came out, it's really, really hard to not also say that it's...
I mean, it is very rare when you get an actor of such quality taking on a role. I mean, I'm pretty sure when Sir Derek Jacobi appeared in Utopia, it was remarked that it was the first time ever that a Knight of the Realm had appeared in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
A universe without a master scarcely bears thinking about.
That's all for this first ever episode of Please Attend Carefully. Thank you so much for listening. Going forward, we aim to have new episodes up every week for our first season, focusing on different chapters from the Master's life. And to kick things off, episode 2 is available right now. We hope that with each new episode you come to understand, appreciate, and maybe even obey the Master. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be updated on new episodes. Amber, how can listeners get in contact with us?
Well, they can email us at pleaseattendcarefully@gmail.com. Send us an ask on Tumblr at pleaseattendcarefully. Or you can follow us on Instagram at pleaseattendcarefully.
Don't forget, you can also go to pzinner.com.au/shows/attend for exclusive content not available in the main feed. I've been Ciarán.
And I've been Amber. And don't forget, episode 2 is available right now.
We hope you'll be tuning in. After all, it can't hurt you to listen, can it?